Yo people, welcome back to the YouTube channel. You already know what time it is. It's time for your news / opinionated video that I should have brought to you yesterday, but I'm bringing it to you now in more detail. And thank God there was actually some lateness is greatness, because there were some updates that would not have been given to you prior. Now I know I've left you malnourished and neglected. I haven't given you that breaking news: Joao Felix, £9 million, 11 million euro loan deal for 6 months. But there was some added extra news. So we're going to get into talk about that. And of course, we're going to talk about Thuram from Mönchengladbach in terms of our interest in him as well as Pedro Porro. Careful there. So let's get into it. We're starting with Joao Felix. Like I said, the deal seems to be moving very quickly at a high speed. You know, David Oenstein has spoken about that. Fabrizio Romano has confirmed that as well. £9 million, 11 million euros for the rest of the season. Very expensive. It's why maybe Arsenal and Manchester United have been put off, have walked away. We are going to pay his full wages, but he has signed a new contract at Atletico Madrid until 2027. And it's now been confirmed that Diego Simeone is staying until the end of the season. So how do we digest that? How do we let that sit in our stomachs? Do we throw that shit back up, or do we let it sit there and kind of digest it and come to terms with it? I think we have to do a bit of both, because it's not the greatest deal. It's very expensive over a very short period of time. We're not getting any option to buy it as it stands, and that puts us in a weak position, because if he does play very well for us, which we hope he does, very big fan of the player, spoke about him with Rabona TV in that video from his Benfica days, wearing that number 79 shirt. I even signed him on FIFA career mode. I really like the player. But outside of my PTSD for Chelsea attackers, I'm also worried just a smidge about the deal, because if he does well, his market value goes back up. That's what Atletico Madrid want. They've managed to exchange a loan which he wants with a new contract which he had to sign to get that loan. Very smart business from them. But if we do improve him and make him, back to his old self, then do we actually confirm that we get him, or do we have to go into a bidding war in the summer? Probably at the moment the latter, unless we can, as the loan is going on, try and agree something with Atletico Madrid. But they would probably prefer a bidding war. They don't have to be nice to us. This is business. This is football. He's got a contract now until 2027. There is no reason at all for Atletico Madrid to take him off the market any earlier than, we would obviously want that if he was doing well. But they are more than within their right to let a bidding war, transpire in the summer. So we're a little bit in a weak position, in my opinion, on that. But the good side, we're getting a quality player. Now we're getting a player that hasn't really been performing to his peak, to his limits, to his maximum in that Diego Simeone Atletico Madrid system. And I think to analyze too much into his statistics or what he's been doing in that system, which is very counterproductive to how he should be playing, is almost pointless. He's a player that would be much better in a possession-based team. The more he gets the ball, the more I expect him to do. He's very talented. Now, in terms of what position and where I would place him, outside of the PTSD, as I said, I'm interested to see where Potter will play him. If we're going to stick to this 4-3-3, just for a second, just to envision it, I would actually like to see him as the most attacking midfielder in the three. Now, defensively, he's been playing under Simeone, so I've seen him do wing-back shifts. I've seen him and Griezmann do wing-back shifts in the Champions League for Atletico Madrid. Now, can he tackle? Can he be a box-to-box midfielder? No, that's not what I'm saying. But can he work hard enough to get back into shape if he has to? Yes. Now, obviously, in an ideal world, you would love to free him up. And of course, you don't want him to, be shackled by any defensive responsibilities. And that is why Zakaria, Akova, etc. would play alongside in that midfield, in my opinion. But as you saw from Griezmann in the World Cup, when you give a playmaker or a wing-off, false nine, that advanced midfield role, sometimes they can end up dictating the game. I feel like Felix could be and could become that player that kind of dictates the tempo of the game, that becomes our main, source of creativity in terms of the vision, passing, not from deep, but in, phase 2, second phase. I feel like he could be that player in between the lines that we punch it into, or that player that could punch it in between the lines. He's got that vision, he's got that pass, and he can dribble as well. So we saw it from Griezmann at the World Cup. It is a little bit of a, wild card for me to say that he could play in a midfield three, but I think that type of player, and we've seen a lot of wingers and a lot of attacking players like Joe Linton, completely different player, but Iwobi, Griezmann. We've seen a lot of players move into the midfield three that used to be wingers, that used to be advanced players, and their ability to dribble, but their ability to spot a pass, their ability to, shoot from range potentially, crash the box. Felix is very good at that. He can obviously get his goals. Brilliant dive and header against Manchester United. There's something there. Now, I'm not saying that's the only position he could play, but if you are to not have it linear, and have him as that really attacking left-sided centre mid in Mason Mount's position, in my opinion, and give your right side centre mid a little bit more defensive responsibility. Kovacic, who's not as much expected to get into the final third, score goals, etc., and then Zakaria as the sitter. It's something that I'm interested in, just to get attackers onto the pitch, and of course also because my other reason for this is Cucurella is not looking that good going forward, so maybe we need to look at Cucurella as an inverted left back. That could give license for a Felix to play in that Xhaka role for Arsenal, more advanced, and like I said, a Zinchenko, Cucurella tucking inside and covering for the defensive responsibilities, and also still allowing you to double up on that left-hand side, whether it be a Sterling or a Pulisic. Felix could be that extra man on that left-hand side that gives you the creativity, but is also natural in wide areas, and they can interchange and cause chaos on that left-hand side. So there's a lot going on there. It will be on the tactics board. Felix, in terms of, like I said, the PTSD, injuries, we have to be worried about, slight minor ankle injuries over the, last couple of years, muscular injuries. Of course, he's a very light player. He's light on his feet. He dribbles, he carries the ball. We have to be careful in that regard. We've seen that before with Pulisic, etc. And also just because we are Chelsea, I really pray to God that we balance out the team, that we get the holding midfielder or any midfielder, Enzo Fernandez, etc., the right back to add some more chance creation and balance in the build-up play. I don't want it to just be Felix or bust because, again, we've seen many good quality attackers come in and fail at this football club, and Felix is a player that needs almost reviving, like Fortnite. He needs rescuing, he needs bringing up, and there's no point putting him in a place where stifles him, neglects him, remains malnourished. His skincare routine is not popping. And next thing you know, Felix ends up being a flop, and everybody's like, oh, Felix can't do it. We've seen it so many times with so many attackers. Look what's happened to Sterling. Now, I like the player. I really, really like the player. I hope that we take care of the player and we actually get the best out of the player. I'm not saying that we're going to actually reap the rewards in the future because of the lack of option to buy, but really, really like the player, and I really wish the player well. So it's actually perfect now. He comes to Chelsea and it's like killing two birds with one stone. And also, just the final thing I will mention, in terms of the player, we have to make sure here that when we bring him in, we really actually keep him to one position. I think sometimes we move our forwards around too much. We saw it with Sterling, wing back, then right wing, all over. Just if he's going to play a certain role, let's play him there. Let's get him used to chemistries and understandings with people next to him, and then he can start to get some rhythm and start to, go on a roll. If we start moving him right wing, false nine, left wing, 8, it's going to get complicated. He's going to not get the rhythm, not going to get the chemistry, and he's already acclimatized and adapting to the Premier League as it is. If this deal goes through, I don't want to make it any more complex for him. So it's a short-term deal. Will he be good? Hopefully, we pray. But I really do like the player, rate the player. But like I said, I'm very calm and collected because of the other issues in the team. So that's Joao Felix, and looking forward to potentially, hopefully, his arrival. We're going into Thuram now. Let's talk about Thuram, because Thuram is an interesting player. He used to play more on the wing. Last season, he kind of played in the front two. Sometimes he would play out wide on the right or the left. This season, he's definitely playing at the top of a 4-2-3-1 for Mönchengladbach. He's the second highest top scorer in the Bundesliga behind none other than Nkunku, but he has missed more chances, big chances, and also has a higher expected goals than Nkunku. So tells me that more chances are being created for him, and he's just not as clinical. Now, he used to be a winger, so did Nkunku. So we're starting to go through these players that maybe are a little bit stronger as well than your Kai Havertz and your Werners in terms of their build. Their body is a lot stronger, a little bit more equipped for the Premier League, so that gives me a small inch of confidence. Where will he play? I would assume it would be up front, considering we're lacking, starving in that area. Fofana's obviously coming, Brozia's injured, Aubameyang's being hooked, he's not really wanted. Probably goes down as part of that group of players that Potter doesn't really want reportedly, but are on high wages and are difficult to clear. He's clearly not interested in most of the team and would like to have a revamp, which we need, which is one of the reasons why I am more prone to Potter staying than a lot of other people at the moment. Not because I think Potter is this world-class manager and he's elite, but I do think Potter deserves the opportunity to have his own team that is not plagued with limitations, injuries, technical deficiencies, physicality problems, and of course, limited individuals. And then if Potter does not work out with a proper team that we can actually believe in and that we actually rate as fans, then fair enough. But I don't believe in sacking a manager, having a fake bounce, getting the best out of mediocre, average players, and then having a false sense of security that we're a better team than we are, and therefore in 18 months' time, the next manager gets betrayed. Count yourself lucky that you don't have an emotional attachment to Potter yet, and they're not doing this with a manager that you love, a Tuchel, a Jose Mourinho, a Carlo Ancelotti, etc. You don't have any emotional attachment to Potter yet. He hasn't given you that. No reason to be. So just kind of numb at the moment, and the players will expose themselves and hopefully be kicked and cussed to the sidelines. So back to Thuram. He's a 25-year-old, so again we're still going with that youngish under 25 mid-range player. So again, value for money because his contract is running out. So that's also a good point as well. That's why we're looking at him. Of course, we need a forward. There's issues around Pulisic, what his future looks like, Ziyech, etc. Now, for me personally, on the player, haven't been watching him consistently this season to give loads and loads of analysis in terms of games watched, but in terms of what I've seen from the percentiles and the statistics, it looks like he's a very good dribbler, or at least a good ball carrier, and of course his finishing and goals is very high at the moment. Passes, progressive passing and things like that will not be high because he is at the top of that Mönchengladbach team. You wouldn't expect him to be creative in that sense. He's kind of the end guy. He scored a few headers as well, so maybe that could be something that he brings to the team. But again, I'm not fully confident in terms of him being a clinical finisher, and I'm talking about Harry Kane level of clinical, because again, I just don't think he's on that level yet. It's probably definitely things he needs to improve. Is he that out-and-out striker that we need in terms of the top level? Who knows? But his interceptions look pretty high. Maybe he'll press from the front, he'll win the ball. Probably more molded to the type of forward that I would have wanted us to get over, say, an Aubameyang, a Ronaldo, etc. So not completely sure on him. Not going to tell you that he's going to be absolutely incredible. Let me know in the comments below if you've been watching him more often. I like to get experts on here that have watched games consistently for Mönchengladbach or any other team for a player that we're looking at. Some weaknesses, some strengths, looking at the percentiles, but nothing too much to gauge. But at least it's a low-cost deal, and there's no huge amounts of pressure on the player, no huge amount of expectation from the fans. And like I said, physically, in terms of the way he carries the ball, the way that he, handles himself, he looks a lot closer to an Nkunku in terms of being built for the Premier League physically, hopefully mentally, than a Werner and a Kai did. And that's all I can really go into. So if the player comes in, it's another player that I'm intrigued by. I'm happy that it's a low-cost player with potential, but like I said, he kind of came off the bench for France at the World Cup playing out wide. He's played up front this season for Mönchengladbach. I don't really know if it's a front two. He's playing lone striker at the moment. What's his best position? We'll have to find out, but he'll probably play at the top for us. And moving on finally to Pedro Porro. Now, this is a Sporting Lisbon right back. I've only seen him a couple of times this season, of course, playing against Tottenham in the Champions League, especially away from home. He looked particularly good. Now, this is a very attacking wing back. He's playing in a 3-4-3 for Sporting Lisbon. We play a back four at the moment. I hope we stick to that, but it's quite hilarious, isn't it? That everybody was talking about, move to the back four, everything will change, the team will open up. Not if you don't have the right profiles. Look at Manchester City. They actually move to a back three quite often with their wing back tucking in. Look at Arsenal. Sometimes move to a back three. Their fullback, the two fullbacks, Rico Lewis, Cancelo, Zinchenko, all tucking in. A lot of teams are actually starting to play a back three now. This is a formation that a lot of the fan base wanted to clear out because, it's the formation. It's not about the formation or the system. It's about the way that we play within it, the style of the play. So again, hilarious how we've moved away from a back three and now so many big teams seem to be going to it. We've moved away from a traditional striker and Lukaku, etc. and so many teams seem to be going towards it. Football is a funny game. But like I said, Pedro Porro, has had quite a few assists this season, 5, 1 goal in the Portuguese league. Looks very strong from the 2 games I watched and just from the statistics. The percentiles again looks really strong on the ball carrying, very press resistant. It's got good ball control, very good going forward in terms of the passes that he's receiving, the potential for goals and obviously the assists. Really good crosser of the ball, really good crosser of the ball. So you're going to get a little bit of Reece James in that sense. Defensively now, this is where I haven't watched enough of the player. Do we trust him defensively one-on-one? He's obviously 23 years old. He's maybe a little bit light, definitely a lot more lightweight than Reece James. You let me know in the comments down below what you make of him defensively in the comps. It's hard to tell because you're only getting highlights, you're not getting the mistakes. Very good going forward. I have no worry and qualms or questions about this player going forward. He looks really good, really fluid. Like I said, really good in press resistance, good control, build up plays involved, switch of play. Love the way he has a little instep. He's got like this little Trent Alexander-Arnold kind of instep with the way that he passes and the way he crosses. Whether he can switch play like him is another question we'll have to see. But in terms of defensively, can we trust him in a back four because he plays at wing back? And mainly when managers set up wing back, it's because they think their forwards are great going forward, but they maybe don't trust him defensively. Do we trust him defensively moving from a wing back position to a back four? We'll have to see. This was a link from Ben Jacobs. And of course the others, Fabrizio and Oinstein as well. So some really heavy links with these players. Reason why I'm actually talking about them because I tend to wait until the big hitters come. So yeah, It's going to be interesting to see, but if he does play at that right side position, I would look then for some defensive security on the right side of any double pivot or any midfield three, and that's why I have it kind of Felix on the left, obviously Thuram playing at the top of that if these players were all come in, Zakaria at the holding midfield position now, not Jorginho, and Kova on the right, or even a Mason Mount if you're going to ask him to do the defensive duties, but also, you know, he's probably quite used to playing in that right side half space, whipping the ball in with the cross. Gallagher as well in a midfield three, maybe. But you're asking them to be the more defensive-minded 8, kind of like a Henderson for Liverpool, and to cover the Trent, aka the Pedro Porro in this situation. Don't watch porn. So, bad. So, yeah, Porro in this position, really, really good going forward. You're going to want the midfielder to kind of cover him, look after him, and that is what I'm kind of thinking in my head, logically. If he's not that great defensively, again, you can push him up, and Cucurella kind of tucks in. He's your inverted left back. He's maybe the one that stays back a lot more, because going forward, he hasn't been very good. And of course, then you've got the balance between right side and left side in the defense. So, let me know what you think. Smash up the damn likes. Make sure you leave a comment down below on all of the 3 players that I've mentioned. And until next time, big up your damn selves. In a bit, people. Peace.